What are the serving sizes of the soup?
Medium and large.
Okay, a medium,
Cream of pumpkin.
yes please, and a small Americano.
Small American.
Yeah. And is that carrot cake? One of
Yes,
those?
it's carrot
Yeah,
cake.
carrot cake. So I am here at Ahmeraki Cafe and I saw this book first. I know about it, but I hadn't had a chance to look at it. So this is Usain Bolt's Legend, and it's pretty much it's not a full account of his life, right? But it's giving some of the highlights of his career. And so it's like, look how young he looks. He looks like a baby here. And it's showing some of his races. So let's really quickly look at some of his fastest, oh my gosh, record setting team here. Of course, he has all the poses. And Gatlin they're doing their podcast now, aren't they? So this is also super nice to see. Oh, here's Warren Ware when they were all babies and Johan. Anyways, oh, and the Mo Farah. So I think this is really cute. It's a coffee table book if it's something you're interested in. And this is by Ian Randall Publishers. Yeah. So let's try soup. It's cream of pumpkin. It's not the way I remember it. It's good.
What's the white thing?
I think it's cream, actual cream. It's good. It was better the last time I had it though. I feel like it's not as smooth. They didn't blend it. Thank you so much. And may I have the carrot cake now, please, as well? We have foam. We have foam. It's freshly ground. Oh, it smells good. That's it. That's it. Oh, it's kicking me. So, you with a view, okay? So basically, it's a second chance romance. These two people could not stand each other in high school, and it turns out that their grandparents were in love at some point. These people grew up, they married. This is how the grandparents, right? They married separate people, and this girl finds out that her grandmother dated the guy who was her like enemy in high school because they were super competitive, and he was like in tech, and she was in I don't remember what area she was in, but they definitely were just rivals, right? And so she would follow his successes over time, and she was struggling with hers. Oh, I remember she was in content and media, and so she creates stuff online. She also does photography, and so she goes through this whole journey of getting into her first love, which is photography, which he knew about her, but she felt like she wasn't that good. She let some idiot teacher in her high school to learn that, and she believed it. So what do I always say? Say it with me. Men are trash. Okay, that was the first one of this video. Anyways, so it takes place basically over 2 weeks. They reconnect, and her grandfather is telling her his grandfather, I'm sorry. So his grandfather and her grandmother were together at some point, and the grandfather is telling them about how their relationship went and how they ended up breaking up. And so the young kids, the young the adults, but the younger couple, they get together and rediscover each other over time. And so we find out, more about them and their passions. And the guy, he's going through like he's in tech, so his they're at a crossroads in their company, and so he's going through that. She's on TikTok, right, bringing people along on this story. So it's kind of relevant to present times where people can follow a saga, on social media. And so that was super, I guess, contemporary about this novel, but altogether it was very forgettable. And I think it was enjoyable in the moment, and I think this is one of those that blew up on TikTok because TikTok was kind of the subject of the book. But I don't think I would recommend this. This Time Tomorrow by Emma Straub. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. This is contemporary fiction. This book follows a daughter who discovers that when she visits her father's home at a particular time, she can time jump. And throughout this book, I'm telling you the end, right? But it's still a journey, it's still worth reading. Throughout this book, she finds out that her dad was doing it to revisit the day that she was born, which was his favorite day. She does it to revisit another day, which I can't remember right now, but it basically takes you back to one day that's preferred for you, and you continually live that day over, like if you want. You go to this shed at the house at this time, and something happens in the weird hours in the morning, like at around 3 a.m., and she ends up going back to where she was at that time. And so she's able to live her life and come through. And then at the end, her dad, because he was doing this time jump thing, is in the hospital and they don't know what it is. But she realizes that it's related to that. And so they have this whole like coming together at the end, talking about, the effects of this on life. Because depending on how much they enjoy that time jump, they want to continuously go back and go back and go back. But apparently it's detrimental to their health. So it was a really interesting book. Some people, it made them cry. Didn't make me cry. I don't know. It's not that it's not emotional. I think it could be very emotional if there was that one person in your life who it's just, yes, it's the death of a parent, but it's also, the sacrifice they made when he expresses to her that I basically was the happiest I ever was at this time. And it's because of you. Like, that's very emotional, but it didn't necessarily make me want to cry. But it is an interesting perspective. It also kind of reflects life because her dad was an author as well. Peter Straub was a mystery thriller author, very popular. I've never read his books. That's not my genre. That's my least favorite. But because she lost her dad, and they have this course about writing and stuff like that. That's the perspective she came from with losing someone who was close to her and also in her field, as she's trying to chart her path in that as well. So I think it was a good book, middle of the road for me, but super interesting. And if you're close to someone who you've lost really early, it might be something you want to consider reading. All right, people, I've been eating this carrot cake, right? And I just realized it's got a well in the middle of cream cheese. Okay, so I thought it was just the cream cheese that's on top, but there's a well and it's very tangy. The cream cheese needs to be tangy, so that's really good. And then the Americano was so nice. I had the foam on the top. It's cooling now and it's a little less, but it's nice and strong. When you feel the caffeine, just you feel your eyeballs doing that weird thing. Yeah. So it's really good. So I want to actually give the carrot cake, I'm giving it like a 4.5 out of 5. And I'm giving.
Make it hard to get a 5. After all the hype I thought, yeah, but this is 2 5 out of 5.
All right, no, because. All right, you know what? I'm gonna give it my 5. 5. Okay, for the cream cheese and for the coffee, I'm giving a. I'm giving a. I'm giving a. Yeah, I'm giving it a 5. The next book is called Liquid, a love story. This book recently came out. I got it as an advance reader copy. So what that means is that you get a copy. Limited amounts are given out for people who are early reviewers of books to help build buzz around the book. And so I got this book, and it's from the perspective of an American girl, but by ethnicity, she is half Iranian and half Indian. She's recently finished her PhD in English literature, and she is on the job market. She was adjuncting at a university, and she's considering applying for academic jobs, but she's not really sure if she wants to continue on that path. She's also a really close friends with this white boy. And did I mention I gave this 3 out of 5 stars? I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. So there's this white boy who she's known from undergrad, and they met just by the way, and she's been friends with him for a while. And so instead of but she goes on this thing, he's dating and he's getting back with an ex who's toxic and she really doesn't like. So she decides, okay, for whatever reason, she's gonna date 100 people and she's gonna document it in a spreadsheet. So the premise of this was really interesting, but I feel like it almost felt like 2 separate books. It's kind of biographical in the sense that she's talking about her personal experience. She deals with grief whenever she finds out midway in the book that her dad's sick, and she has to go back to Iran to see him, and she's dealing with the issues of healthcare and lack of insurance and being in a developed country. And there's just a lot happening, and it's not necessarily bad, but I thought it was going to be a romance novel, and it kind of is, right? It's an ode to rom-com. So in the end, I'll give you the spoiler, right? She ends up getting with the guy. They find each other. They both mutually come together at the end. But I think it kind of had a roundabout way of being a romance, and also it was a what do we call it? It was an ode to rom-coms, meaning that throughout there are references in the books, and I kind of like books like that where the book in itself, each time it sends you to go look up another book, and it sends you to, sends you back to a book or a movie, and this was like that. So it had lots of references, and then because she is Hindu, she Hindu? Because she's Muslim as well, not very strict practicing, right? But Muslim as well. It also gives perspective about life for Muslim women and some of the restrictions, right? And so I think just like my reviews was a little bit all over the place, the book was kind of all over the place. So it was an interesting read. I really liked the cover of this. So because one of the main themes in this book is her going on 100 dates and she's putting them in spreadsheets, there is a spreadsheet motif on it, and I thought that was really interesting. So I think it was one of the more interesting and ethnically diverse books I've read this month, and for that reason I would actually recommend it. I think it gives a perspective to a different way of life than your average rom-com between a white couple is gonna give you. So yeah, I recommend this one. Black Woman Grief, A Guide to Hope and Wellness by Natasha Brown. Black Woman Grief, A Guide to Hope and Wellness. Black Woman Grief, A Guide to Hope and Wellness. So this book I gave 2 out of 5 stars. It's by author Natasha Brown. It's a black author, a black woman, African American woman. And it's a good book. It's definitely for a particular audience, right? So it's also a press that is publishing Christian books, and it is heavily Christian based. So throughout there are Bible verses and scriptures that are being shared, and I do think they were apt where they were shared and how they were shared. I do think, however, that it is how do I say it? I was looking for it to be a guide on grief and wellness and hope. And whereas there were some pieces of that included, I feel like the majority of the book leading up, it talks a lot about context of what is happening, what causes grief in Black American lives, in Black American women's lives, emotional labor, killings during COVID and things like that. So I think part of it had to do with when the author wrote this book, but I also think that and the context that she lives in, which is understandable. The author can only write from their particular context, but at the same time, I think that there could be better. How do you say this? There could have been a better balance between what the book promises and what is actually presented to us. And while I think this is still really helpful, towards the end there were activities and questions that a woman could do if she's grieving or if she's having anxiety or stress that could help you to identify where you are and how you might work on them. But I think that unless you totally skipped the first part of the book and went straight to that, which is not the point, it might feel a little bit like a letdown. But I do think nonetheless it'll be a really great reference book, and I think it would actually make a really good Black women's book club pick and a really good Bible study book club pick. So if you have a Bible study, this could be really good because it's got scriptures mixed in and it's got notes on hope and grief, and she talks about some of the personal things she's gone through and how she came through them. I think that was also my only other challenge a little, is sometimes it felt a little bit too much about her. And if you want to write a book about you, that's fine. But if you're making this a book about suggesting ways to cope with grief and find hope and wellness, then that's what we really need to get more of. So my fifth book is Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. 5 stars. 5 stars, 5 out of 5. From the time you start reading this book, within 1 or 2 chapters, you know you're going to. I knew I was going to like this book. So this book is kind of fantasy because it is an octopus who is remarkably bright. He's smart, and his name is Marcellus, and he lives in an aquarium, and he's smart enough to escape his cage in the night and go eat out the other creatures' food and go on little adventures. And he's decided that he's going to reunite one of the workers who volunteers at the museum. She's older, she lives by herself, and her husband died, and she lost her son years ago when he was a teenager at the docks in the town. And I don't know, somehow the boy, he's had a troubled life, but he's made his way back to town. He finds his way back into the aquarium as well, and they have no idea that they're mother and son. So Marcellus takes it upon himself to reunite them, to leave them clues, to drop a piece of paper here, to hide something in his tank, and then to get it back out at a particular time. And so it's a really good adventure, right? So you have some books that you can label as adventure because the plot is taking you places literally, right, and figuratively, right? So they're traveling, they're on road trips together. There's a nosy shop owner who likes one of the main characters and is trying to, get with her, but he also can't keep his mouth quiet. So any little piece of intel that he knows, everybody in town knows it too. He's a notorious gossip, and so it's very entertaining, but it's also a book that can be widely enjoyed by men and women, right? There's some books that they call women's literature because men probably wouldn't be interested, but there are themes in here for men as well. One of the main characters is a man, and he's finding himself after not being able to keep a job, and his girlfriend just being weird and stuff like that, and he also finds love in this town, and all of these things. So I think it's also a multi-generational interest. So young people, older people who are approaching retirement. And I think just because of the adult themes, I wouldn't recommend it to children, but I think older teenagers could read and enjoy this as well. So 5 out of 5 stars. This is a book I want on my personal bookshelf that I can go back and read when I just want a nice little, feel good that takes you through a journey. Final book is Dot Journaling, a Practical Guide. And this is really just a guidebook, a resource book on how to dot journal. So if you don't know what journaling is, it's like a journaling style or journals, notebooks if you will, that have dots on them, right? So these dots can be used to help as a grid for writing, as well as drawing, as well as note-taking, doodling, anything, right? So apparently there's a whole system on these things, and that includes putting things for action, moving things to the next week, marking things as done. They're actually guided ways. I don't remember the name of the person who actually came up with this system, but there is a way that dot journal is supposed to be done. Most people do what they want to do, which is great. I know I'm one of those people. But it was my first time reading about the actual formal way to do it, and it was really helpful. I actually gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars because of how practical it was. The kind of book that you want to have as a way to, sometimes knowing the way to do things and knowing the system of things is really good, so that you can modify it for your own use. And I think that's one of the benefits of doing dot journals. And I'm personally, because I read so much, I'm trying to journal more about my reading. I don't want to stop to write, but I think dot journaling could be a short, quick way to do that. So it's something I'm learning about and considering, and a book I would actually recommend if you're interested in dot journaling too. Okay, so in terms of the Ahmeraki Cafe, I rate cafes on food, accessibility, parking, working, and environment. On environment, I give it a 5. On food, I give it a 5. On accessibility, there is a ramp, so I can give it just a little jump up, so I have to give it a 4. On workability, there's Wi-Fi and desks. I would give it a 5. And on parking, there's enough parking. Okay, so overall, this is a really strong cafe and would recommend. Tell me when I can. Oh, can I go? Okay.